Brown says, get that India. Big boy.
Call an ambulance! Maybe call a police! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell killer!
Hello and welcome back to a preview edition of the Tip Sheet podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020, joining me to break down a rather brief round. Given that there's no NRL in action this week, it's my good mate, Sixties. Big fella, first grade is on hiatus with a bye, but we still have Flegg and Cup to cover. So before we get into it, how you doing?
Yes, g'day, mate. Looking forward to being able to watch both lower grades live, actually, this weekend with the matches at Eric Tweedale Stadium. It's not easy to get around, especially to catch the Flegg. I mean, we can often catch the New South Wales Cup, and they tend to be at friendlier times. Sometimes there's curtain raisers for the NRL. That doesn't always work out for us when we're doing a pre-game podcast in the Leagues Club. But this week we get to watch both live at Eric Tweedale, so people should make sure that they tune into the Cumberland Throw for the live blog of what's happening in the matches. And I think it's going to be great to watch that. But let's not forget as well, we've got some Eels running around in tonight's under-19s Origin game, and we might just talk a little bit about that before we get into the lower grade matches.
Yeah, the rare Eric Tweedale doubleheader with Cup and Flegg in alignment for maybe the first time this year, maybe the second time. I'm not sure. It's been an incredibly rare occurrence this year. And like you said, 60's got 4 reps in the 2 Origin games tonight. And before we get into that preview, quick shout out to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Rowan and Parramatta for sponsoring both this show and TCT. Much thanks to Greg and the crew there. So let's talk about Origin 19s, their 60s, because you can catch this one on New South Wales or NRL.com, I believe. I think it's on.
It's on Fox.
It's on Fox,
Fox
well.
Sports.
Correct.
Yeah,
so
Fox Sports Live, both games, and the men's game, the men's 19s, is also on Channel 9 live coverage as well. So
the sequence starts with the ladies though, and this one's 5:45 p.m. kickoff, and it does say 9 now K on Foxtel, so maybe this one might also be on free-to-air. But
I think it is probably on. What is it? 9. What's their
9 now?
9 now
would be their digital platform, because 5:45 are on it against the News. There's no way they'd be playing that.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So it's on their secondary channel there. So so you can catch that live on Fox Sports on the Fox League channel.
Yep.
And we got a couple of Eels representatives in that game.
Yeah, no surprises if you've been watching Natasha Gale this year. Lindsay Tui, who made her debut in the NRLW last season, she gets a starting centre berth. And then Ryvvr-Lee Alo, who was fantastic as a lock forward for the Eels in the Gale, has earned the starting lock position for the Sky Blues. So well done to both players there. I'm just looking through the rest of the team there, seeing if anyone stands out from who we saw. There's an Indy Bostock. I wonder if in relation to Jack Bostock in the centres there. There's a Paseka on the wing. So it's always interesting seeing all the potential bloodline connections across the 2 branches of footy now. No one's jumping out to me from our opposition team sheets that we saw this year, 60s. But on the flip side, there's a Sewer for the Queenslanders. Who else we got here? Ryvvr-Lee Smith. Was there an NRW play by Ryvvr-Lee?
Look, honestly, I can't recall.
Yeah, but yeah, in terms of the Eels there, Tui and Ryvvr-Lee Alo selected, and like I said, no surprises in the context of their 2 individual seasons. 60s, Lindsay was an absolute handful for opposition backlines to try and contain, and River was, a blend of both high work rate and high quality impact through the middle. So they're very worthy selections, and I think they're going to. Lindsay's going to be playing NRLW almost certainly, but River's going to be progressing through, I imagine, to the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership on the back of this. and going to be very keen to see how both of them go in senior football this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, it says a lot about Lindsay, doesn't it, that in her first season of Tarsha Gale, as an 18-year-old, that she also graduated to the NRLW team and made her debut in her first season of Tarsha Gale. So she was eligible for a second season of Tarsha Gale this year. And with the fact that the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership is now being run concurrent to the NRLW, it meant that it was a good option for her to play her second season of Tarsha Gale this year as a lead into the senior football. So, as you mentioned, she was a star for the Eels Tarsha Gale team. Ryvvr-Lee has, well, you saw it yourself, mate. She's got a great motor. She just, good work rate. And I think the Eels supporters who follow the NRLW team will be really impressed with both of these girls tonight in the 19s Origin. It is interesting just to see how many of these girls will go on to play NRLW this season, let alone future season. I know when it comes to future seasons, probably the majority of them will be playing NRLW, but it'll be interesting to track how many of the New South Wales and Queensland girls do play NRLW in this season. So bit to look forward to there. And of course, mate, with the boys, the men's team, both names, Eels representatives are familiar to Eels supporters. Matthew Arthur, of course, Buds, who's been absolutely smashing it at New South Wales Cup level, literally demanded selection in this under-19s team. Very unlucky to miss out on the 19s team last year because he was the dominant dummy half in the SG ball competition. Correct. Was instrumental in the Eels taking out the title last year. And he did, of course, come up against the West's Tigers dummy half, who is playing first grade and has played first grade in the past. He was sort of his rival for this position in Talon De Silva. And of course, De Silva was, because he was playing first grade last week, it opened the door for the selectors to not have to make that tough call between De Silva and Arthur in this one. As I said, Arthur's, well, in my opinion, he's outplayed De Silva every time he's faced him in through junior representative football. So I would have thought he was the choice to make, and that's no reflection on Talon De Silva, who was a talented player in his own right. He's already playing NRL, and basically, in our opinion, Matt Arthur should also be coming off the interchange bench now for the Eels in NRL, such as his talent. But anyway, we're going to, as I said, Eels supporters are very familiar with young Buds, and he didn't play New South Wales Cup last week because of his selection in this team. So you'll get to see a bit more of him tonight. Sam Tuivaiti, teammate of Budsies in the SG Ball and Jersey Flegg teams from last year. Sam's still running around in Jersey Flegg in 2024, and he's really starting to warm into the season right now. He's had a couple of powerful games in the last few rounds, and the Eels are on a bit of a roll in the Jersey Flegg now after a very tough start to the season. He's coming off the bench in this, so he's going to play that impact forward role, and he's probably a player who is well suited to that impact role, wouldn't you say, John?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Sam's very competent as a starter too. We've seen that for the Parramatta Eels for his junior reps career and into the Flegg now. But when you sort of profile him to an eventual first grade or at least an early first grade path, you can see him being an impact player off the interchange. And Sam's one of 3 players to make the back-to-back selections from 2023 and 2024 for New South Wales 19s. I think Chevy Stewart and Jermaine McEwen, the other two. And obviously Chevy's gone on to play some first grade. So Sam's in good company there. And like you said, probably didn't exploit other blocks like we would have hoped for this year on the back of an injury-disrupted preseason, which makes a lot of sense, but starting to really warm to the task now. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the forward pack has really taken a step forwards, if you pardon that poor phrasing there, with him rounding into some of his better form. So really keen to see what Sam can do here. Obviously keen to see what Buds can do as well. He's been tearing up the New South Wales Cup level, and if he can bring that sort of form to the 19s arena, he might end up being man of the match.
Yeah, and it's been this 19s match, certainly the team last year had the number of players targeted by the Canberra Raiders in their recruitment drive. And, we see there are a couple of Canberra players in there in Chevy Stewart and also Noah Martin. But, whether they this side continues to be the target of the Raiders, whether the clubs that are listed as that these players are with can manage to hold on to the players is of course another matter. We do see the McLean brothers from the Panthers there. Michael Jabril, who was originally with the Parramatta Eels at our Harold Matts level, went to the Dogs. He's now with the Sharks. He's there on the wing. He's certainly a powerhouse runner of the football. Should be a good clash, and hopefully we see the not only our boys performing well, but also the Blues bringing home a win.
And before we do finish up on the Junior Origin segment, need to quickly mention another congratulations to Matt Arthur, because obviously making selection this team, but he's also going to be one of the two co-captains for the New South Wales under-19s alongside Penrith Panthers winger Jesse McQueen. So Buds will co-captain that team from around the middle, and it's a massive achievement on his resume and a very deserving one for sure.
Okay, mate, that brings us on to the Eels Jersey Flegg match on Saturday at Eric Tweedale Stadium.
Yeah, it's a pair of high-leverage games for the Parramatta Eels this weekend. Not only are they looking to try and continue their run and surge towards potential top six berths in both competitions, but the Canberra Raiders, who are their opposition in both the Flegg and Cup, are incredibly highly seeded, coming in at first place in the Flegg and second place in the Cup, sporting an 11-win, 3-loss record in the 21. So that's a very formidable run there for the Canberra Raiders. These two teams met back in round 5, I think, or thereabouts, and I think we end up dropping both games. So we look at this one with the Eels lining up like this. We did mention on the news podcast, we'll go through it again. Zach Hunter at fullback, Moe Alamadine and Bo Newlands on the flanks, with Antioch Faitala Mariner and Araz Namva in the centres, and what has become a very settled backline after a lot of turbulence and turmoil with people being unavailable earlier in the season. In the halves, speaking of settling in nicely, Arthur Tweedale has been fantastic in his progression from fullback to 5'8", really looking sharp in the halves now. He partners Matthew Hunter. Sam Tuivaiti is expected to back up and has been named in the starting front row alongside Tinkin Brown, who scored a try last week. Ryvvr-Lee Smith coming back down from New South Wales Cup to start at dummy half. Jock Brazel and Will Latu on the edges. Latu, another player, spending some time in Cup recently, so hope he can be better for it in the Flegg level, with Saxon Pryke locking the scrum. On the interchange, Yaya Ayachi, Dom Destratus, Tyrese Lekenny, and Damascus Nemia. Ralph Destratus, the 18th man in the 19th jersey as that concussion reserve, taking on the Canberra Raiders team, who, again, looking at some of these names, probably not familiar to us because we're not, Raiders fans, but I think we've talked about before. There's an Arthur Masanga there, Jordan Uta, former Parramatta Eels prospect there, who went to the Raiders. He's done very well to get to the Flegg level this quickly. But they've only got 3 losses to their name. We know they're going to be a serious challenge, but the Eels have been doing a lot of winning lately. So this is a fantastic time for a litmus test like this, and you make this win, and you're making a big jump towards getting to that top 6 provisionally.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the players that are in form. Yes, the Eels certainly have players who are in form. Mohamed Alamadine, I think he's brought a lot to this team since he's been elevated from the SG ball. Just his work in yardage has been outstanding. Powerhouse runner of the ball. He doesn't mind coming in for a carry through the middle of the ruck and can do some damage there. Bo Newlands has settled down out on the wing now. Because I think he might have had injury at the start of the season.
Yeah,
but anyway,
he wasn't available, I believe.
Yeah. So and he did last year as well. So he's got a bit of toe, Bo, and he got 2 tries last week. One of which was, I think, it was about a 60, 70 metre effort from recollection. The back line certainly very settled there. Interesting too that you talked about Arthur Tweedale and his transition from fullback to 5'8". Like a number of players in the Eels team, and that includes Faitala Mariner, Tweedale, as I mentioned, I think Matt Hunter, I'm pretty sure Tiankin Brown, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Will Latu also from Queensland originally?
I think he might be from the northern parts of Queensland, yeah.
Yeah, so there's all those boys that I just mentioned had been recruited from Queensland, and Arpa, I think he's originally New Zealand,
yes,
but through Queensland is where he was picked up. But I believe he had a background playing in the halves up in Queensland, and that we converted him to a fullback in the SG Ball, in the team that went on to win the title. But now he's shifted back into the halves, and we're seeing some of that skill set at the moment. That he was heavily involved in a lot of the Eels tries last week, and one of them, the crossfield kick that he put on for Bo Newlands was it was a special one. It was it ended up being quite a when you can kick crossfield like that, it's as good as being able to throw a forward pass out to an unmarked winger.
Yeah, exactly.
Think of it like that way,
it kind of bends the game, doesn't it? Like the ability to create opportunities like that.
Yeah. So, but look, they've got the benefit of Riley Smith as well, returning from his 1 week up in New South Wales Cup, and he's just the he's got the motor that he's got on me. He's just full of energy, and it's he brings quite a lot to the team. And we've seen him fill in also even in the halves when the injuries were really striking earlier in the season. So, and it's not that Yaya Ayachi didn't do a good job last week, because actually he did. He was quite strong, and there are players now that aren't getting a run in the team that are either on the interchange bench, the extended bench as it is with Raf Destratus, or if you go to the Sydney Shield side, the Cabramatta side in the Sydney Shield, you'll see a bunch of forwards that aren't making the team in the Jersey Flegg at the moment, and so they've got a reasonably deep pool of forwards that they're able to select from, and some players that would be well known to those who follow junior reps that are running around for Cabramatta. So the team has settled. There is competition for places, especially in the pack, and that's showing how strongly they are performing. They look to have a great team spirit at the moment. Winning obviously does that. They've won, what is it, 7 of the last 8?
I believe that's how we categorized it when we were doing our news podcast. So let's go with that.
Yeah. So that's basically after losing, or it might be 6 of the last 7. Anyway, they lost their first. Yeah, I think they're 6 of the last 7. New South Wales Cup are 7 of their last 9. And the Jersey Flegg did lose their first 7 games of the season. So that's indicative of how much they've turned things around. And to be honest, a couple of the games that I watched in that early part of the season, I was wondering where they were going to get a win from. mean, there was one or two where they butchered wins, but they've now found that consistency and self-belief. So you mentioned before, it's a big ask to beat the Raiders, with how strong the Raiders team are and how they're travelling performance-wise in this competition. Great litmus test, again, as you mentioned. I think they might be able to get the job done, mate.
I mean,
I think they could win a close contest.
The team is playing good football, like just consistently now, and that goes such a long way towards being able to challenge a team like the Raiders. So I'm going to be very keen to see how this one plays out. I think the Raiders should be favoured, maybe marginally, but the home ground advantage shouldn't be overlooked here. And I think it should be a good crowd of the doubleheader with the Cup following. So I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility if Parramatta Eels get an upset victory in here and really take a serious step towards, incredibly, given where they were, rounding into legitimate finals contention. So this one you can catch on TCT on Saturday. We'll be out there for the live call of the game on our website with the live blog, so you can join in the conversation there. And unfortunately not being broadcast on any streaming platform by New South Wales Rugby League. But in terms of being broadcast, good news, the Cup game will be on their platform. So if you have the subscription or the free trial still available, make sure you can catch this one. Also, the updates will be on TCT too. So that takes us to, of course, the preview where we have the team lists with the 9th place Eels hosting the 2nd place Raiders. Eels look like this. Not too many changes this week. No surprises there, given that they're winning. Zach Sini at fullback, who's really come to life with the one on his back. Lorenzo Mulatalo and Isaac Lumi on the wings. Jack Tungor and Morgan Harper in the centres. Joshua Lynn and Ethan Sanders, the young halves pairing there, with Sanders taking on his, obviously, future employers. You got Wiremu Greg and Makesi Makatoa with Joey Lussick in the front row. Matt Arthur not named to back up this week. We have to wait and see whether he'll be a late inclusion or if we're just going to give him a rest proper, given that he's had a pretty high workload this year. In the back row, Dan Keir captains the team on one edge with Matt Dury on the other. Luca Moretti is a lock forward, so plenty of NRL experience in that forward pack this week. It ends up bumping Charlie Geimer to the interchange bench, who's been fantastic in that starting lock forward role. So unlucky for Charlie, but just the weight of experience there, knocking him down half a notch in this team. He's joined on the interchange by Manny Luke, Brock Parker, and Reece Alderton, which has been, in some configuration, pretty much the standard bench for them. Manny Luke's really locked himself in as that impact dummy half, while Reece Alderton has quietly done a good job for the Eels in this grade, with Brock Parker obviously who's sung his praises aplenty this year. He's floated between starting and being on the bench and done fine, more than fine, in both capacities. So big test here for the Parramatta Eels 60s, because I can see this team, and I mean, Alba Hopewadi, James Schiller, then you've got Corey Horsburgh, Peter Holler, Simi Sasangi, Hohepa Puru, all players that have got either NRL or NRL experience or NRL potential. Peter Tateo, another former Parramatta Eel who's floated around a bit last couple of years, he's on their interchange. So they are a pretty handy team. They're the Canberra Raiders.
And that's evidenced by their position on the ladder.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think the last time I watched them might have been they tailed up the Roosters, I think, in a match that was covered on Fox, but and looked impressive. But yeah, a big ask. Now, when we're looking at this Eels team, you've got first of all, Zach Sini has been a little bit of a revelation at fullback. He's arguably hitting the best form that I've seen from him at the club.
Yeah, as an Eel, no doubt. I think the forced involvement, maybe, like the fact that with the one on your back, you need to be taking a kick return pretty much every set or every other set, has ignited him in a way. It's been good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's look. There's probably never been a question about Zach as a runner of the football, and that fullback role, I guess that really suits that to a T. They're going to run more than any other player on the field, and that's his strength. So he's gone particularly well. Jake Tungor has been a little bit of a revelation as well this season. He's come out of nowhere and has been a bit of a mainstay after first playing as the winger and he's a really compact build, so he's not in that tall aerial specialist type winger. He's more built like the Brian Toto sort of player, and we suspected that he might be better suited as a centre, and he's gone pretty well in that regard. Morgan Harper, very experienced NRL centre, made some very good defensive choices, I thought, last week. Lynn and Sanders, they are a good combination. They know each other's play through having that season as the title-winning halves in the Eels SG Ball, and then taking that up to Flegg and playing together at that level. And Sanders has had his NRL experience. Josh Lynn actually got New South Wales Cup call-up last year before Sanders did. So, and I thought he did quite well in those in the one or two games he played in New South Wales Cup last year.
The moments where they combine too, it's so nice to see. Like, and I know that it's not going to be a thing next year. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of the business. With Ethan choosing to take a more open path to a first grade start, which I'm not judging. That's completely reasonable. But when you see them combine, it feels like old school halves. Sneaking onto the other side, the interplay of passes between the two of them. I think they were playing against the Bears 60s, and it was at North Sydney Oval, because when we had that odd back-to-back games at North Sydney Oval because of the Magic round or the Beer Wine and Food Festival round. And they set up a try where it was just beautiful, like playing down the right, back inside to Lynn, I think it was, who then found Sanders, who then found Lynn again. It was just when you see that sort of stuff, it's enough to make an old man shed a tear, sort of things in rugby league. You love seeing the halves combine like that, and there is a legitimate combination there between the two of them. It's great to see, and obviously when you throw in Matt Arthur too, and obviously last year Arthur was at fullback, but now there's a bit of a clash there because he's transitioned to 5'8". But when Matt Arthur's in the frame as well, between the three of them, there is a legitimate connection, which is just so rare to see these days below the NRL level.
Yeah, absolutely true. Now, when you get to the pack, you've got 5 of the 6 starting forwards having NRL experience, with only Dan Keir not being an NRL experienced player. And Dan's probably been behind Boods. He's probably been the most consistent performer out there for the Eels in this grade, and has assumed the captaincy role. And then you've got someone like Matt Doorey, who's playing on the other edge and is as close to demanding a first-grade call-up as you're likely to see from any player, because he just threatens all the time with the lines that he runs. He's just a very, very good attacking back rower. So to me, he is genuinely one of the future players for the Eels, and I know he's had experience for a number of years playing first grade, but he's still relatively young, and I think there's a lot of potential for Matt at the Eels.
Is there a chance he gets pulled before kickoff with the injury to Kelma Tuolangi?
No, because I think with the being a buy for the NRL, I think they'd be happy for him to be getting more game time. I really do think so. I don't think they'd wrap anyone in cotton wool for next week, and especially given Matt's run with injuries, and now getting into some of the more consistent football in terms of his consecutive matches out there on the field. I think they'd be pretty keen for him to keep doing so, and to keep building up match condition, and who knows, maybe getting a win over a high-placed Raiders side, just adding to the confidence that both he and the rest of the team are able to play at. It's quite interesting to see Charlie Geimer bumped back to the interchange bench with the first grade players that have come back in by way of like Woody, Makahesi, Luca Moretti, especially when we've been talking about the potential for Charlie to get an NRL debut this year, and instead he's being bumped back to interchange for New South Wales Cup. And I mean, that was my concern with Buds when Joey Lussick was going to be bumped back to this grade, that he'd be pushed back to the interchange bench and look like they're going the other way rather than heading towards first grade. So it'll be interesting, because I don't think this should in any way prevent Charlie from doing what I think he should be able to do, which is to get some game time in the NRL in 2024. So, but yeah, looking at that bench, mate, it's they've all performed well. Manny Luke has done a great job as coming on for Matt Arthur in the second half during games, and he got the starting gig last week. Did a good job. We talked about Charlie. Brock Parker, Mr. Consistency when it comes to middle forwards, and I think he's got a future in the game. And only a young bloke himself, graduating from Jersey Flegg last year. And Reece Alderton, we've mentioned about him in the past. He's sort of come out of nowhere as a consistent cup player in 2024. So, look, I think there's a lot of positives in this team. They've got a good roll on, but yes, a big ask against the Raiders. Like the Jersey Flegg, it'll be a way of judging where the team is at right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play without Matt Arthur, because Joey Lussick obviously a very competent dummy half, and he should be good, like very good at this level. But Buds has been the heartbeat, the engine for this team through a lot of their games. Like, he sets the tempo that the rest of the team plays at. And it's going to be a big task for Joey to replicate that, at least offensively, where Matt's been so aggressive, but without overplaying his hand often. Like, he's been making great judgment calls. So it's going to be good to see this one in action. Canberra, a very talented team, obviously second on the ladder, plenty of NRL players in their on their side of the team sheet. But you can catch this one from 3 p.m. on TCT on New South Wales Rugby League TV, and it's out at Eric Tweedale Stadium if you want to get out there and have a good day of football. 60s, what's your tip for this one? Eels to prevail, or are the favourites Canberra by some margin?
Look, Canberra will be deserved favourites, absolutely. And the Eels, look, I think it will be tougher playing without Matt Arthur. And, just as it's tougher with them missing players due to the backline injuries as well, because we're playing four players in that back line, including the halves, who sit outside both NRL and development contracts. So, the Eels are doing, I think, exceptionally well under those circumstances, because they've had to really dig into some depth that sits outside of the full-time roster to make up the numbers. So, look, you know what? I'm not sure how it's going to go. I'm pretty sure the Eels are going to put in a very strong performance. Look, I will tip them to win in a close game. And I'm not just saying that with the heart, because the role that the Eels have been on has been undeniable. The only thing that is maybe denting my confidence a little bit is that last week they got the job done against the Roosters, but it wasn't really what you'd call a convincing performance. It was it was one of those matches where they did what they had to do to win without being, too many outstanding moments. I thought the Roosters were quite ordinary, to be fair. And they're going to need to lift this week against the Raiders. I think they can lift, But yeah, I think they'll need to be at their absolute best. So that's why I said it's going to be a good test for where they're at. What about yourself, John?
Yeah, I think there's reason for legitimate optimism come Saturday. It's not a flash in the pan at this point for either the Flegg or the Cup. They obviously had the awful starts on both sides there, but they have worked very hard to have a sustained run of success now through the mid-season, now into that final. Well, it's not final, but into the rounding home to the long road to the finals, the tilt home. So yeah, I think there is good reason to be believing they're going to be very competitive on Saturday. They're going to challenge the Raiders, and it might come down to one call, one play sort of stuff between the two teams. With the Eels being in form and confident, I think they're going to ask the serious questions of the lime green machine over there. And yeah, maybe it's going to be a single-digit margin either way in a really tough and torrid contest. So I'll back our boys to get the win. But again, knowing that the Raiders are a very, very good team and that they could equally run away with the bickies.
Yeah, and I think it is going to be such a key game when it comes to season momentum.
This is a big one because the Eels now sit just half a win behind the Panthers in terms of that final place in the finals provisionally. And even the Raiders themselves, they're technically 3 wins ahead because they're 8 wins, 2 draws, which is equal to 3 wins. So that would put them on. No, actually, that would only make them 9. That would put them on 9 wins. What am I saying? So they're only 2 wins ahead of the Parramatta Eels still. So, except for the Bears, who the Eels have bizarrely got the wood on, beaten twice this year, I believe, who are now 10 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses, and 2 of their losses at the Parramatta Eels. The rest of the seedings are wide open if the Eels can get a win here. It is actually crazy how much they've turned their season around. So this is a huge one. This is the one you want to have.
Mate, I can remember by the time we got to about the 5th week,
we'd said the finals, it's done. Because statistically you're going to maybe go 500 or 0.500 for the next couple months, but instead the Eels have batted well above that.
Mate, I was bemoaning the fact that I'd never seen such a start to a season by both lower grades, where between them they couldn't get a win in the first 5 rounds, and obviously the Jersey Flegg had extended to 7 rounds. But I was starting to think, are they going to go through the season not winning a game in either grade? It was
approaching that sort of energy. Yeah.
Oh well, it was because both teams had matches that they should have won, where they were in a position they found a way to lose, and you don't like seeing teams find a way to lose because that doesn't augur well.
And you talk about those habits, both winning and losing, right? When winning becomes a habit for good teams, losing becomes a habit for bad teams. And that was the concern, was that it was starting to settle into that kind of thing. But as we said, Jordan Rankin and Nathan Kalis, and obviously their assistant coaches, because they're not in their lonesome there, deserve plenty of credit alongside their playing staff for having a real big dig to turn it around. And even if obviously we want them to go on and make the finals and make some noise in the postseason, but to even be in this position is a serious credit to both rosters after where they were. So it's been really fun watching them turn it around, seeing all the young guys in the Flegg coping with the cascade of injuries and suspensions and representative call-ups in the upper grades that have trickled down to them, seeing the Cup start to find its identity, even with a lack of top 30 talent that has also obviously impacted the NRL. And yeah, like I said, full credit to both squads. It's been fantastic to see them turn it around the way they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And mate, that just about brings us to the end of our podcast. A nice quick one, given that there's no NRL for us to talk about this weekend. So is there any NRL games that interest you this week, mate?
If we look at the schedule quickly, what have we got? Dolphins and Storm obviously has some top 4 ramifications there, so that's probably going to be a fun game, the way the Dolphins are playing. Although
I'll take the Storm.
I've got to say, no Hammer means that I'm not as invested in the Dolphins. He is just bar none the most exciting player in the competition. Titans and Warriors, whatever. Roosters, Bulls.
Yeah, hang on. We'll give a quick tip. What was yours? Tip in the Storm and the Dolphins? Mine was the Storm.
It's at Suncorp, which is technically the home game for the Dolphins, but we all know it's the home away from home for Melbourne, so I think Melbourne's probably the right call, yeah.
Yep. So what was the next one? Titans.
Titans, Warriors, gross.
Oh, Warriors will do
Yeah,
that.
it's at Seabus, but I think the Warriors should be less Origin impacted and ready to go. Roosters v Bulldogs.
Interesting one.
Roosters heavy favourites on the sports bet line here on NRL.com.
Yeah, I'll stick with them too.
Yeah. Look, the Dogs are playing some good football, and I don't think they're Origin impacted because Matt Burton's wasn't called into the New South Wales team this time around. So I might go for the Dogs for the cheeky upset here.
Yeah, look, it's not outside the realms of possibility because the Roosters certainly gave the Eels opportunities last week. We know that they're prone to errors. We know that they're prone to some dull spots in games, whereas the Bulldogs this year have fought and scrapped for most of the games. So, look, I can see why you'd tip the Dogs. I'm just waiting for the Dogs' bubble to burst and then for them to crash and burn. Maybe I'm hoping for it more than waiting for it.
We talked about confidence, right? The Dogs are pretty high on that, and so they're starting to make winning a bit of a habit. So,
well, if they get the win over the Roosters, they'll have some genuine momentum.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about that with the reserve grade game, but the Dogs that have that genuine momentum in the NRL. Okay, what's the next one?
Penultimate game of the round is the resurgent Rabbitohs taking on a very understrength Manly Seagulls out at Accor Stadium.
I think the Rabbitohs get it done.
Yeah, no Cam Murray, no Latrell Mitchell, and I don't think they're named in the extended rosters. No, so they're going to be rested by way of the selection rules. But Manly, obviously, there's no Daly Cherry Evans, no Jake Debojevic. Plus, they've got some injuries. I think the Rabbitohs are probably the smart call here.
Yeah, well, young Jake Arthur's out for the season.
Yes, I was going to say.
He couldn't be called up.
Yeah.
They're really under strength in the halves there.
Yes, they are. They're playing Carl Lawton, who is a dummy half/back rower more than anything else. And Luke Brooks, obviously, in the six, but probably going to be playing halfback. Which brings us to the final game, and, well, it's West Tigers in 16th place taking on the 7th place Canberra Raiders out at Campbelltown. So what was Leichhardt last week, Campbelltown this week. So the two spiritual homes of the Tigers getting a run here. I'm pretty certain I know I'm going this way, 60s.
Oh, we're going the Raiders in this, although their form's been a bit down. We don't want the Tigers to find a way to start winning because then we will become the Tigers. And we don't want to be, I mean, some would argue we're already the Tigers in 2024. But look, I think the Raiders will be too strong. I think the match was half-handed to the Tigers last week by their opposition. So
Gold Coast Titans were exploded the box and were out there trying to spin plates after that. It was very bizarre stuff. So I think Canberra, and look, Hudson Young, he's out of Origin, so he's playing for the Raiders. He's got a point to prove. They're a good team, and I think they're going to hopefully put a score on the Tigers here. That rounds out the NRL, or what will be the round 16, of the NRL. We were round 15 last week with our loss to the Roosters. If the Eels obviously on the bye alongside the Broncos, Cowboys, Dragons, Knights, Panthers, and Sharks. So it's a split round, which is why there's only that many games to be previewed. And the Eels will come back out of this round on the road to McDonald Jones Stadium in round 17 to take on the Newcastle Knights.
And who knows how many players we'll be able to choose from.
Yeah, well, Mike Acevo's tipped to be available, but he was meant to be available last week too, so you have to wait and see if that hammy. We're still waiting news on Jermaine Hopgood. The club said that he's getting scans on the back. I mean, a lot of the discourse and issue was positive, like it's going to be a manageable injury, but when you're still waiting scans, you start getting that little gremlin in the back of your head going, well, what happens if it's really bad? So we have to wait and see where Jermaine's at, and obviously how Mitchell pulls up from Origin. So there's a lot of balls being juggled right now for the Eels in terms of roster availability. And on that note, if anyone's a hypochondriac or a football hypochondriac, I probably shouldn't have been listening to me just then. We persevere, and we got a couple of games tonight to watch in the 19s Origin. Got a couple of games on the weekend to be out there at Eric Tweedale. So it's still plenty of football there for the Parramatta fans. Thanks for stopping by and giving us a listen. And big fella, as always, I'll let you have the final say.
Well, first of all, thank you to our sponsors. Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. And as I always say, go you mighty Eels.